Welcome to the Dynasty Pulse right here on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. We have a very special show tonight, as we do every week. We're excited to welcome Jeff Bell to the show. He's the Dynasty lead at Football Guys, one of the most respected voices in the fantasy football industry. He's built a reputation for sharp evaluations, forward-thinking dynasty strategy, and a very deep understanding of player development and long-term value. His work continues to shape how serious dynasty managers build rosters and make decisions year-round. We're going to tap into his expertise tonight, break down the quarterback landscape, rookies, risers, potential busts, and get his perspective on how to stay ahead in your dynasty leagues. So without further ado, let's welcome Jeff Bell to the program. Yay! Welcome, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'll tell you right now, whoever wrote that intro is way too kind. That was a lot. I appreciate that. It's great to be here. Thank you guys for having me on.
Mike likes to give all of the steam and all of the shine to everybody when they come on.
Well, I appreciate that. But again, it was too kind. Thank you.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find your stuff? Advertise yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Football Guys. All my written content goes up through Football Guys. We just did the Football Guys rookie guide. We were talking about that a little bit pre-show, and you guys have an awesome guide that's coming out too. So make sure to check that out, everybody. But we do the rookie guide during the draft season. I write mock drafts. I do those types of things. I do multiple podcasts. Right now, it's really just the Dynasty show that I do with my good friend Dave Kluge. And during the season, we hit I do the DFS show. I do Dynasty show, all kinds of different things throughout the season. But all that content is through Football Guys. And then you can find me on all the socials at For Whom J Bell Tolls.
We are on 101.5 FM talking West Tennessee. So, how y'all doing?
How y'all doing?
Yeah. How y'all doing is crazy.
Exactly. So we are getting ready to talk quarterbacks, and we're going to get behind the steel curtain here with Jeff. We're digging into everything from the rising stars to the aging veterans to system fits, trade values, long-term outlook. So each co-host will take their turn asking Jeff a focused, thought-provoking question to peel back the layers of what makes quarterback valuable in today's dynasty format. So Jeff will share his insight, and us co-hosts will jump in and give their reactions. So let's get this segment started, Schultze, and let's probe our expert. All right, Chev, welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing tonight, man?
Oh, if I was any better, I'd be twins, brother.
Awesome. Well, you got a question for our esteemed guest?
I do have a question for Mr. Jeff Bell. Jeff, Mr. Bell, I don't know what you prefer to be called by, Mr. Guru.
That works, man.
Guru expert.
I mean, he literally put Jeff in his graphic.
My name is Jeff.
Make a good point.
That's a good point. I probably could have just gone with the Jeff thing. But hey, so after seeing like what the Chargers, Panthers, and Bears did in the draft, with a guy like Justin Herbert, how much does your outlook change for a vet when you see that they've gone out and added weapons to an offense like that? The Chargers had 504 pass attempts as a team in 2024. Like, do you see that number going higher for them in 2025? And then the second part of this question is, with guys who are the number one, like in that number one overall pick strata, does this create more certainty when you see how they've spent, like how the teams have spent capital to acquire weapons to prove whether or not they're the long-term answer? Or would you just kind of wait? Like, would you be more aggressive in buying them, or would you be take a more cautious wait and see approach? I'll hang up and listen.
You're good. When I look at quarterback development, I always go back to moving the sticks. I really like them quite a bit. Bucky Brooks always talks about quarterback development, like trucks and trailers, basically, is the way to look at quarterbacks. And you've got, it's pretty rare that a quarterback can be that truck right out of the gate of bring along a poor offense. And whereas like you kind of want them to be a trailer a little bit, have a strong ecosystem around them that can kind of push them and pull them along, similar to like Brock Purdy is a good example of that, being in an absolutely loaded 49ers offense with a forward thinking coach there. And then you have to get to that point where once that quarterback's developed enough, that salary structure is going to flip. You're going to have to pay that guy. And that's when you need him to be that truck. And so what I want to see out of those young quarterbacks is just like what you said, investment on building around them, putting them into that ecosystem that will allow them to succeed. That makes you feel good that those teams have a good idea of what development is necessary. I go back to Justin Fields with the Bears, where that until they got DJ Moore, it kind of just felt like they were tossing him out there with like Darnell Mooney as his number one receiver. Just, good luck if this works, Justin, but you got this thing. And then they kind of almost too late started to put some pieces around him. And I think the Bears, talk about the Bears here, have learned from that experience, and they've been aggressive with Caleb Williams and saying, okay, we're going to go get you Rome Odunze. We're going to get you Luther Burden. We're going to get you Colston Loveland. We're going to allow you to have a chance to succeed, because we saw previously with our last young quarterback, we didn't do that. So you do want to see that. I think that kind of solidifies that. In terms of the Chargers question, I haven't gotten to my projections yet. I'm building my spreadsheet out right now, and I'm going to work through that. But I think that 504 is probably a pretty solid number. I don't know that I would kind of tweak it up or down too much. Obviously, I think we feel better with the talent that they have in their backfield coming into next year with Omarion Hampton and with Najee Harris. Versus J.K. Dobbins had a great year last year. Gus Edwards gave them a little bit in windows. It's a two-headed thing there, where if they can run the ball better, that might say lower pass attempts. But if you can run the ball better, that creates a more explosive, efficient offense that can be like similar level pass attempts and more high value pass attempts.
I love that. I mean, they were split pretty evenly. I mean, they ran the ball 463 times. They passed it 504. I just was kind of looking for some confirmation bias on Justin Herbert being such a rare talent that Greg Roman starts to take the training wheels off and not rely so heavily on the run game. But then they spent the first round pick on Omarion Hampton. He also is a tremendous pass catcher. So I just kind of wanted to see what your thought process was, if you would want to be early to the party. There was a significant dip in Justin Herbert's value. I mean, he's going to the second round of startups, whereas he was locked in as a first round pick, early on in his career after breaking the rookie touchdown record and all those things. So I do appreciate the insight there.
Yeah, and I'm definitely buying. I was buying last offseason. We saw a major dip last offseason because everybody was convinced they weren't going to allow him to throw the ball. And then he started the year with that injury. That injury took away most of his training camp. He got healthy enough to be able to start at the beginning, but then you look at the way he played, that first month was really cool. And he had a massive explosion, and really all those numbers that you wanted to see. So you've already seen that mindset. They were so run-heavy. They've already allowed Justin Herbert to beat Justin Herbert, which is what you want to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see that, because I was pretty low on Justin Herbert headed into last season. I wasn't buying the dip because of, Harbaugh coming in, run first. They were going to put all this emphasis on the defense and everything like that. And then he had a really good season, showed consistency, and now they're bringing in all these weapons around him. Spending that first round draft capital on Omarion Hampton says a lot to me. And then also Trey Harris coming in, they're building weapons around him, even bringing in Mike Williams back, a familiar force there. We talked about it on our other show there, bigz. He's going to have a lot of weapons to work with here. So, who's got a lot of weapons to work with is the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. And it's the website where you can find everything you need in the platform. So Schultze, tell us a little bit more about it here.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
I just wanted to say how proud I am of myself for going through an entire segment talking about the Chargers, and I didn't even once say Tucker Fisk. Grindberg, do you have a question for Jeff?
I do. Okay, and this is exciting to me because I'm really high on Baker Mayfield this year, and he's really climbed up my boards this offseason. He's coming off a really strong year. He actually finished as the QB4 last year, and now you add another weapon, and, the Bucs, they showed their cards here. Putting first-round draft capital on a wide receiver that is more of like a luxury to me when they already have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, plus a solid backfield, Bucky Irving and Rashad White. He's only 30 years old, Baker, still young in the quarterback standards. Football Guys has him as their quarterback 15 in Dynasty right now. Meanwhile, guys like Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy all have more volatile profiles, in my opinion, and are ranked ahead. What's holding Baker back in the Dynasty ranks despite the weapons, stability, and the proven production?
I think the key there is we've seen Baker bottom out. Like if you think about a couple years ago where he was basically, I've got him on waivers in some very deep dynasty leagues because everybody was ready to give up on him. It looked like the NFL had given up on him. It went so poorly in Carolina. And then we did get that random Thursday night miracle with the Rams where he joined the team like 15 minutes before the game started and went out there and played fantastic. But I think that when you've got that in people's minds and that's still fresh enough that people remember that happening, that's where you run into problems on him being above those guys that you kind of talk about or flirting with that top tier, despite what the production says, despite what the opportunity around him says, is that when people have experienced that bottom, it's hard to push him back up there again.
That's definitely fair, but I think he has become the poster child for mid-career resurrections. When everybody talks about what Sam Darnold did last year, Baker Mayfield is sure to become a part of the conversation and everything. Is there still some ceiling left for him to discover, or do you feel like he's right there where he's gonna be for the next 5, 6, 7 years?
Well, I see behind you, you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
And I don't know to age you or not, but Rich Gannon. So Rich Gannon went from being a journeyman forgotten about to an NFL MVP in like the last chapter of his career. And so I think that's that's another example of a player that really found the right situation. And I think that even goes back to that first question on quarterback situation is so important for these players to be able to be in an opportunity to succeed. And I think you've exactly right, Mike, on your question that Baker is in an amazing opportunity that plays very well to his strengths. He's got so much talent around him that you should absolutely be buying into him on that situation. I think that the only reason why people aren't putting him above some of those other players is just because that bottom did happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, is Football Guys has him as, I think, their quarterback 6 in redraft. So you guys are very high on his profile, his profile headed into this year. And it's just the dynasty thing where I see him, with the Kyler Murray situation, his profile is pretty volatile. So I just have him a little bit higher. I got him as a QB1 still in my dynasty ranking. So I just wanted to see kind of where your head was at and why you guys were a little less bullish on him as I was.
And I do appreciate your measured discretion with the Rich Gannon talk. If I really wanted to date myself, I would say that Jim Plunkett was the first Raiders quarterback that I knew of. And he was a mid-career resurrection as well. He was absolutely terrible. He was an interception machine and went on to win 2 Super Bowls. So what are you going to do? I got a question also, and it seems very curt. It's not as flowery and wordy as the couple that you've had so far. And I'm going to bring up 3 quarterbacks who have all kind of their values have wavered significantly over the last couple of years. Are Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, and CJ Stroud the quarterbacks that we've seen or the quarterbacks that we think they are?
So unwinding that a little bit, we've seen two different CJ Strouds. I would say we saw rookie year, he looked absolutely fantastic. Last year, less so. They made a change. They changed their offensive coordinator. They tried to get him a little bit more weapons. So you flash back to the middle of the year when Nico Collins was injured after Stephon Diggs was out, and he was throwing it to John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. And I mean, guy had no prayer to be able to succeed in that situation. So I'm obviously wearing my Ohio State sweatshirt, but I'm sporting. I think that CJ Stroud, I feel better that he's more his rookie year than what we saw last year, and they're going to make sure that they see that. I think Caleb Williams is fine. I think that there was a lot of overreaction about how bad his year was, quote unquote, last year, just because of, I think we're dealing with expectations on that. I think everybody expected him to be, as good as Jaden Daniels was, basically. And when that didn't happen, everybody said, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? But, there was coaching situations as well. They made that change very early and off the offensive coordinator, and then stepping in, new coaching staff, and we would feel pretty good that Ben Johnson seems to be about the best possible outcome there for Caleb Williams. So I'm bullish there. I think Anthony Richardson, injuries are a massive, massive part of that. That he has struggled to be available. We've seen limited windows where it looks like this guy's putting it all together, and then we've seen other windows where it looks like he can't hit anything at all. And so, that the range of outcomes there is just so wide. And even then, again, when's the availability question going to happen? And I think that that's one thing that until maybe the game slows down for him a little bit, he figures some things out or breaks through whatever the barriers with injuries. I think it's something that is always going to be an issue that's going to prevent him from seeing and playing as much as he needs to.
Do you think he's actually in danger of losing the starting job?
Yeah, I absolutely think he's in danger of losing the starting job. They're going to Shane Steichen is not exactly the most secure job, I don't think. I know they flirted with the playoffs, but they lost that game to the Texans 2 years ago to lose the playoffs the last week of the regular season. So we've seen these opportunities, but they haven't really grab those. And so Shane Steichen is right there ready to be fired if they don't figure things out. And those types of coaches, that's when you see changes, and they're going to try to make sure that if Daniel Jones is the answer, whatever it is.
So keep, trade, cut the 3.
Good. Keep, trade, cut the 3. I'm going to keep Caleb Williams. I will trade CJ Stroud, and I will cut Anthony Richardson.
There you go.
Man, you love to see it. And with Caleb Williams next year, we see the ascendance. In team pass rate per game, the Bears were 10th. Caleb Williams, it's kind of a hard thing for some people to grasp. Jaden Daniels can still be up here, and we can still be massively bullish on Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
While Caleb Williams may not hit that Jaden Daniels ceiling. So both can be true. So I'm with you on Caleb Williams. Love that. I'm absolutely cutting Anthony Richardson. You see how I feel clearly here. Daniel Jones, Colts starting quarterback in 2025. I do want to get back to CJ Stroud, a huge winner from the NFL draft. And I like how you said it, Jeff. It's been a tale of two quarterbacks. We've seen two sides, and you agree towards the former, the rookie CJ Stroud. He ends up getting Jaden Higgins, got Christian Kirk there, Jalen Noel. You love to see Woody Marks even as a compliment. And I know, Chev, hey, never Woody, always Woody. We stay Woody. And we have great support. Last year was Dell, Diggs, Nico, Joe Mixon, and Stroud all clumped together. Now we accordion out our ADP between Nico Collins all the way down to Noel and Higgins is so far spread apart. And you get that discount. It's a 5-6 round discount from last year. Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud have switched their ADP. So I love where you're at with the keep, trade, cut question that bigz had. With Caleb and Stroud, you're going to get trade value for Stroud. You want to keep Caleb Williams because we believe in that ascendance. Doesn't have to be Jaden Daniels. And, of course, Anthony Richardson, you were alluding to maybe he can't hit the broadside of a barn. That's kind of what I was hearing. Now, question for you, Jeff, based on quarterbacks, just under 70 quarterbacks a year, each year start. Ray G has been talking about that a ton. With that in mind, what non-obvious starters come to mind that we should value in Dynasty Superflex leagues beyond QB32 So thinking of the highest priority backups we should have stashed, who are some of your favorite that come in mind? For me, there's Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, Andy Dalton. I would say Daniel Jones, but he's not a backup. So who are some of those for you?
I think you're in the right spot there. I think looking at two different directions there, either some of these mobile quarterbacks that kind of have that fantasy cheat code, like a guy like maybe Tyrod Taylor or somebody like that they get into the game and you know that you can pick up some of that. He's going to scramble for 30, 40 yards. That gives me 4 points there. Maybe he runs for a touchdown. Maybe he throws for 200 yards and a touchdown or two, but that sneaks you into that conversation of being a top 20 option or even flirting with the low end quarterback one. Or some of these quarterbacks, like thinking about like a Jimmy Garoppolo, where you've seen him be a starting quarterback. You've got Puka Nacua there. You've got Kyron Williams, Sean McVay coaching that team. Mac Jones is a call out there of you've got the situation here with the talent around him. Some of those guys that you've seen play before and seen some competent and especially that are on stronger teams, or some of these guys that can be these cheat codes. I mean, Jake Browning, we saw him 2 years ago.
Shout out
there was a little bit there. Scrambles a little bit. He's got Jamar Chase. He's got T. Higgins. I mean, really, if you're going that direction, you kind of almost scattershot it just because you don't know who's going to actually get to play. I mean, Joe Milton's a great example in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb now, with George Pickens, and he gets into the game. But kind of gambling on those two skill sets of either a scrambler or somebody that has some level of success that is put in a situation around them.
Now, would you say, Jeff, like who are a couple quarterbacks that you can think of that in practice you have on some of your dynasty teams, maybe in the 6-point passing touchdown league? It's Joe Flacco. You were lucky to pick him up. Any guys that come to mind where you're like, hey, I'm stashing this player?
I mean, Joe Milton is a guy that I'm not going to let go. Obviously, Daniel Jones, like you got the name there. There's a chance he just wins that job outright. I mean, Sam Howell, we saw enough production out of him 2 years ago. It's kind of like Hendon Hooker. Some of these younger guys that, if Hendon Hooker's the quarterback for the Lions or Sam Howell's the quarterback for the Vikings, we feel pretty good about what Kevin O'Connell's done, having Justin Jefferson, the situation in Detroit. Some of these guys with younger that they spent some level of draft capital on. That's probably where I'm holding more than some of these other kind of dart throw guys. I can't let Jameis Winston go. Like, you just never will let Jameis Winston go, but just kind of those guys.
Exactly. I heard Tanner McKee.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
That was not mentioned.
He may not have said it, but I heard it. I love that Chev immediately reacted to Coach's graphic. He does not want to see the Titans lose twice to Daniel Jones this year.
Oh man, twist the knife.
Oh man. Hey,
I've got a mountain for you to climb mouth first if you're going to start sassing my Titans.
That's why you were upset.
I love this question here coming from Coach, and it's a great conversation to have because it's something people don't talk about in dynasties, superflex leagues enough. Like, I mean, you listed it, Coach. Just under 70 quarterbacks a year are going to play, and you're going to find these dudes who are going to be critical spot starts for you, or you might be able to take advantage and flip some of these dudes and get something in return. And I think it's a great conversation to have. The one thing I'm asking here is we're talking about stashes. Do you consider Jalen Milroe a stash at this point? Because if something happens to Darnold here, like my gut's telling me this dude's going to go nuts on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see him. He's going in the second round of every Superflex rookie draft that I've done so far. So it's like almost even above a stash. It's just, I feel like there is a segment out there that is convinced that Sam Darnold has already seen the ghost and we're not going to get real Sam Darnold because he was so bad the end last year that Jalen Milroe is almost the guy already for some people in their minds. So I think you absolutely have to grab him. And one of the things there, having these rookie guys like Jalen Milroe, that makes nice on the taxi squad. And I mean, you got these deeper rosters where you got 28 plus players on. Those are deep enough that you probably can hold some guys. But if you kind of get any shallower than that, I mean, that taxi squad is great for that backup quarterback because it's one thing with these running backs that situation happens and you're plugging them in. Milroe's the type that if he plays, you probably want to get him in there and see. But some of these other younger quarterbacks, maybe like a Will Howard or something like that, where you're kind of like, well, if he is in, I don't know if I'm going to start him. Like I can put him on my taxi. If it's worth playing him, all right, I'll move him off of there. But I think that that's one benefit you do get from the rookies, or depending on what your taxi squad rules are, from some of the younger players. But I mean, I remember plugging Jake Luton in about 4 years ago in a Superflex spot, and I think he got me like -4 points. I remember who was the wide receiver for the Denver that started the game that everybody was like, I mean, it's a wide receiver playing quarterback. Yes, Kendall Hinton. And everybody's like, it's a wide receiver playing quarterback. You got to play him. And I think it was like -7 or something like that. So, I mean, there are some major bombshells and that's like, I would say to the original question, what players are you targeting? It's almost less what players are you targeting and more, I don't care about Jake Luton if he's going to play. So I'm just not worried about that one.
Yeah. And the thing about these rushing quarterbacks with so much upside, especially like a Jalen Milroe, who the book is not out on Sam Darnold. We know he was, aligned last year with Kevin O'Connell, who has been the quarterback whisperer. He made Nick Mullins relevant for a stretch of games there. And Sam Darnold, not putting him down here, but we want to see what he can do as a starter in somebody else's offense. And there's an opportunity here where he may be pulled within, a short leash here, and that will open up Jalen Milroe, who some of the big name, scouts out there, like Matt Waldman, have compared him to like literally a running back. Matt Forte is one name that's been thrown around there. So a guy that is being drafted or being compared to the running back 2 of this class. He's got that kind of skill set. That you can't ignore that, especially in Dynasty, when a guy like that can get into a game and next thing you know, he scores 35 points. And now you got an asset that's probably worth a round 2 pick, if not more at this stage, to a guy that needs them in their lineup. So yeah, I think that's a savvy call. Taking him in round 2, I don't think is a huge gamble at this stage. I think it's a pretty savvy move because of the upside you can get there. Now, Schultze, what do you got for our esteemed guest here?
Well, as the resident Jags fan, I'm going to go backwards a little bit to Jake Luton. And in that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I just looked it up, he went 16 for 37, 151 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Oh, man.
So that had to have been a negative fantasy game there, man.
Are you sure that wasn't Aiden O'Connell?
Ooh, wow. To your own boy. Interesting. But I'm going to talk about Trevor Lawrence because that's my main man. And recently on Twitter, there's been some discourse about him, which is kind of unusual. Nobody really talks about them. But coming into his 5th season here, you look at the career, there's a bunch of reasons why some of the success has not come to fruition here. You got the rookie year with Urban. We don't even need to go there. Lack of outside weapons in general is thrown to Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, like just nothing really there. And then he had to deal with a stagnant Doug Peterson offense that just refused to evolve as the years went by. Now he's finally got a legitimate receiver in Brian Thomas. And then he missed half the season with injury after he finally gets his guy. But with Thomas entering his 2nd season, we've added Travis Hunter, and now we've got a huge offensive system upgrade with Liam Cohen, helped revitalize Baker in Tampa. The running game also under Cohen should take a jump, which is only going to help Trevor, in my opinion. They've invested into revamping the offensive line, potentially 3 new starters. Where are you at on Trevor heading into 2025 in a make it or break it year for the still only 25-year-old?
So you're a Jags fan? I want to ask you a question. You're a Jags fan? You think
sir.
It's been bad?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, me neither. I think the whole thing with Trevor Lawrence is the belief when he was coming in, basically anointed as the next Andrew Luck, as the next Peyton Manning, that was carrying that expectation coming into it. And I think that if you watched him at Clemson, he wasn't really that guy. It was, I think you're seeing a lot of what he was at Clemson. He's got better athleticism than people realize, which plays well for fantasy football. He does a decent job of taking care of the ball, but he wasn't like Andrew Luck, where it was like you're seeing elite high-level processing. What you saw was a pretty athletic big guy that was able to make plays and was able to lean into the talent around him, and now he's starting to get those pieces put around him in Jacksonville. I don't understand because I agree with you. I don't think he's been bad at all. And I don't think there's any question about him being the quarterback for the Jaguars. I just think it's that a lot of where it comes out of in terms of Dynasty, in terms of fantasy Twitter, is they're not watching all those games. They're kind of hearing about these guys. And when you're hearing that Trevor Lawrence is the next Andrew Luck, your expectation is, well, he's going to be Andrew Luck. He's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. And when he's like the 12th best quarterback in the NFL, everybody's like, well, this guy's terrible. Like, everybody was wrong. This guy's horrible. And it's not that case at all. I think there's situations that you mentioned leading into this question with some of the coaching, with some of the injuries, some of the players around him certainly contributed to some of that. I mean, there's instances of times when he definitely could have played better, but I don't think that I don't have any red flags around Trevor Lawrence.
It's a lot of post-hype stuff. It's the Caleb Williams effect. It's the Cam Ward effect. It's the Bryce Young effect. You have a chance going 101 and being outplayed at a certain point. And dynasty managers tend to pivot a little bit too hard sometimes.
Yeah, and we talked about that train and trailers conversation, or truck and trailer. Sorry, they did the opposite with him. Man, they tried to make him the truck right from the get-go, and just now entering his 5th season, they're finally building the ecosystem for him.
Well, Urban Meyer wasn't trying to run an NFL offense. Urban Meyer is, I mean, again, wearing my Ohio State stuff. I have an Urban Meyer bobblehead over here because I'm thankful for the guy winning us a national championship. But at the same time, when he was at the Jaguars, I mean, the ego was way out of control there. And his offense was dated at Ohio State in his final days. To carry that into the NFL and pretend that you're going to run this JT Barrett type offense with Trevor Lawrence at the NFL, like, that's just not going to work.
We've discussed Trevor Lawrence quite a bit on the show. Yeah, we've done Trevor Lawrence versus Brock Purdy. Now, from a tools perspective, he's got everything that you want. But to your point, Jeff, I think we set him up for complete and utter failure when comparing him to a guy like Andrew Luck, who ran the show. He did everything. He understood. He was setting protections as like a 19-year-old, which is almost unheard of. And so I think that now, with them bringing in Travis Hunter, with them spending second-round capital on Brenton Strange, with them still having his roommate from college, Travis Etienne, and then going and getting Basil Tootin, and then Tank Bigsby coming along, I think the ecosystem there is there for him to succeed. And I think the important thing is that you have to give him easy buttons in the offense, like Travis Etienne's RB3 season, they were just dumping off the ball to him and letting him run. I mean, we didn't really get to see what it looks like with him and Brian Thomas, but Brian Thomas, by all accounts, is that guy, and he's going to be that guy for a long time. And then you add another guy that's that guy in Travis Hunter, and they said that he's going to start off playing primarily receiver and then moonlight at cornerback. I don't know how that works, but that's why I don't get paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to design all this stuff. All I got to do is talk about it from a fantasy perspective. So with Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas, Brenton Strange, the cabinet is full for Trevor Lawrence. So we're taking away all of the excuses, and he'll, if it works, we're talking about him being an absolute steal in drafts. I just did a startup where he's my quarterback too, and I'm thrilled about it because he does have that upside. He has more rushing upside than we would like to pretend that he has. And I think that with Liam Cohen, it's going to end up being wheels up for him. And if it's not, then, they're stuck with him for another few years. And I would be thankful for it because I'm a Titans fan.
Dude, the easy button comment is perfect because they've never provided him that other than, like you said, some ETN dump offs. And Liam Cohen is going to bring him all of the easy buttons with legit playmakers. And yeah, I'm excited.
I am not.
Hey, so now we've got a quarterback who was anointed and didn't quite meet that mark in Trevor Lawrence, but could be having this post-hype breakout. Now let's take it to somebody who was in the GOAT conversation. Patrick Mahomes has earned it all the way up to this point. Mass success. Me personally, though, I have him 12 spots lower than the consensus underdog rankings. I have Patrick Mahomes as QB 18. Some guys I have ahead of him, Jeff, and tell me if you agree where you're at on this. I have to Schultze. Schultze's going to love this. I have Trevor Lawrence ahead of Patrick Mahomes this year. Drake May making that step back. CJ Stroud, after this season, sounds blasphemous. After last season, not so much. Now tie in last season with this draft class. And then I have Justin Fields, because we're going to get that fancy goodness, 4-point passing upside, rushing upside. Bo Nix, his own interdivisional rival. Those are some names. Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray. I'll stop there before I read every other quarterback. Anybody that you disagree with, Jeff, is QB 18 too low, or am I right in reacting and saying it just hasn't been good enough the last few years?
So I know you do a lot of underdog, and I do a lot of underdog too. So, I mean, some of that with the quarterback stuff, it kind of depends on your team build, like who, you're stacking them with and pairing them with. But I think that you're largely talking about a tier, correct? Like this is kind of in the same tier. You just have them in the back of that tier.
Well, I've got him, like if I had to just go off of preference, I'm putting him much lower. For stack-wise, for team-wise, sure. I'll pair him up with Xavier Worthy. Got no problem with that. Leave my ego at the door. But as far as all those quarterbacks, I prefer them over Patrick Mahomes, right?
I mean, that's, but you're not saying like these guys are 3 tiers ahead of Patrick Mahomes. You're saying that they're all roughly similar. I just have Patrick Mahomes.
It's ballpark, but I find myself sliding these names above him for 2025. Now, Hall of Fame career, it's completely different, right? What do you got to say? Jeff? Or sorry, Jeff, keep going.
I just think that what we're seeing with Patrick Mahomes, teams have just decided 2-3 years ago that you're just not going to beat us with the 65-yard touchdowns. We just don't care. You're not going to do that. And the Chiefs have leaned into that, and they've built their team defensively. They have stifling defense. Patrick Mahomes doesn't really, I mean, he had a little bit more interceptions last year, but he doesn't really make the mistakes to lose games. And they basically are just at that level where we know how our team is built. This has won us multiple Super Bowls. We are going to beat you at the end of the game. We are fine. I've thought of them as like a python, basically, where they are just choking the life out of the team that they're playing against. Instead of like Lamar Jackson, that's more like your Black Mamba, where it's like we're gonna hit you fast, hard. You've got so much poison in your body before you even know what happened. You're just completely done. Whereas the Chiefs, it's just like you're not even going to realize that you're not breathing in by the time that you're not breathing, like when you're playing the way the Chiefs are going to play you. And they're fine with that. And that has led to lower results for fantasy football. And so I think you're on the right. I don't think you're wrong. And so I think it's because that's the way the Chiefs have just kind of said, we're very, very good at this. If this is how you want to play, we're just going to be better at it than you anyways. And we'll do that. Sure. Play exactly how we want you to play. And that's leads to not being the fantasy quarterback that we came to see out of the early part of his career.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad. Hey, we got you on the show. This is amazing. We could just tie it up and wrap it up right there, but I know there's more commentary.
Chev is chomping at the bit.
Grindberg, I hope you close your ears, because this might have been very tough for the cognitive dissonance and very, very tough to hear. But Chev, what do you got to say on this?
I disagree with everything that you just said wholeheartedly, and I would like to tell you why. Okay, so QB 18 in this economy, in 2025.
Price of eggs going up.
The price of eggs, the price of everything, the price of the Legion of Zoom is at an all-time discount. If I can get Patrick Mahomes at quarterback 18, they go and get one of my favorite receivers in Jalen Royals in the 4th round, which we should have taken him at pick 103, but we took Chim DK. That's not what we're here to talk about, though. We're here to talk about the Legion of Zoom coming back. You saw that touchdown where Patrick Mahomes out through the coverage of both safeties from the Eagles, the exciting whites, for a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter.
This is great.
Hey,
this is awesome.
What sold me on Patrick Mahomes in the first place was a 70-yard throw in the air in the Mercedes-Benz Falcon Dome or whatever the hell it's called in the preseason. So they're going back to that. They're going to be able to use Xavier Worthy down the field. They're going to have Rashee Rice. They're going to have Chev Rice back in the slot operating opposite of Travis Kelce. They're going to have Brashard Smith taking over the role for Isaiah Pacheco in the backfield because Isaiah Pacheco's leg is dangling by a thread. I mean, we saw him average 3.3 yards per carry. So Brashard Smith's season is on the way. We're going back to the Legion of Zoom, and your disrespect, Jeremiah, will not be tolerated.
Well, I think we're all.
I live in Chiefs country, and I hate the Chiefs more than anything. And I'm buying all the Patrick Mahomes that I can because of the fact that like they're about to lose a ton of people on defense. Like they're up, they're not going to be able to re-sign Leo Chenal. He's going to go command a lot of money and probably underperform. They're going to lose. They lost Minahu, one of their pass rushers. They needed a defensive tackle. Like they're having to invest in their offensive line. Travis
Kelce is just like back in the gym working the hardest he's ever worked too, right?
Travis Kelce in between album sessions with Taylor Swift is out there running the old man Tony Gonzalez routes. We're going back to the Legion of Zoom, and I hate that we have to be on opposite sides of this because we usually agree on stuff. But I had to tell you that I think you're wrong here.
I feel like this is something that Mike and Chev don't want to hear this, but we're all familiar with a former guest and friend of the show, Derek Brown, aka D-Bro, who tweeted yesterday that Patrick Mahomes over the last 2 years has really struggled as a downfield passer. In fact, his completion percentage over expectation is the 5th lowest in the NFL and the 9th lowest in the NFL, and he had the 8th highest and 6th highest off-target throw rate. Thank you for that. Shout out D-Bro.
Well, that's because the guys that are actually downfield for him to throw to are like Justin Watson and Kadarius Toney, because teams are like, no, we're not gonna. No, Xavier Worthy, we know what he can do. He's not gonna do this. And Tyreek Hill's gone. I think there's two different conversations that are really happening here. I think that I think we would all agree that Patrick Mahomes, in terms of talent, quarterback talent, is top 5 quarterback, if not no quarterback 1 in the league. It's that, especially I know you, Coach, playing underdog. You're just not getting the spike weeks out of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's the problem there.
That's what you're getting for in fantasy football.
Yeah, and it's like you're getting the 265 with 2 touchdowns or occasionally 3 touchdowns, but it's like you're not getting these massive explosion weeks. And so when you're kind of some of these other quarterbacks that you're talking about, who's more likely? I mean, ideally, you would think Patrick Mahomes is more likely to throw for 5 touchdowns than Bo Nix would be. But really, when you break it down, maybe Bo Nix might be more likely to have a 5-touchdown game than Patrick Mahomes, just because of the way that the teams have structured, the way the league is playing Patrick Mahomes, all those different factors.
Hey, Bo Nix, higher on the list.
I think if we just temper our expectations on him as not being a top tier quarterback anymore is where we come more to reality here. I don't think he's a QB 18 by any stretch of the imagination. I think he fits in as a QB1, low end QB1 at the tail end of that, maybe QB 12, 11 type scenario, especially in Dynasty. That's what we're talking here, guys. He's still got a long-term career ahead of him. We know that he's there for the long haul. He's just getting a bunch of new weapons. They're getting younger on offense. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Royals. These guys are good. And he's set up for a long time as a decent floor play. I don't think he's ever going to hit those heights of, QB1 range ever again. But as a floor play, as my QB2 nowadays, I think that is a great play. And I'm willing to buy in this situation if people are steaming away at QB 18 and trying to sell a stock.
Well, at 18, that would be a mid QB2.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you got, Chev?
May I speak again?
Yeah.
Of course.
So we're talking about him having off target rates with Justin Watson and Kadarius Toney, who we know every time he puts football gloves on, his fingers turn into Megan Fox thumbs. And we're talking about Patrick Mahomes. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes, a generational talent of generational talents, not being able to go back to being what we thought he was. What the 5,040, he did it twice. He did 5,050 one time. Like if they have to go from being a boa constrictor to being a quick strike lightning offense, he spoke about this post Super Bowl. He said, teams have, over the course of the years, teams have just crept up, like, or sat back. And we just took whatever was available to us to keep the chains moving. And in the Super Bowl, you saw us have to throw the ball deep, out throw coverage. And we saw that he still has a very live arm. We went through this same thing with Tom Brady in Dynasty. There was a period of time where they were just completely devoid of weapons, where Tom Brady goes from the 50 touchdown season, he tears his ACL obviously the next year. And then when he comes back, it's just kind of a dip. And then, Gronk gets on the team, stuff starts happening. Gronk, and then, the other guy who had a very illegal side job, and Tom Brady comes back. And then they shift their offensive philosophy to just ball control to, hey, Tom, you control everything, go win the game. Mahomes has had that evolution, but the defense has been so good that they haven't had to do that. So for me, I think that the way that they drafted alludes to them returning back to their old ways, and they're not going to be able to pay everybody on defense, even though Steve Spagnuolo is a mad genius. They were one of the worst defenses in the NFL in 2022. We anticipated that happening in 2023. For the last 2 years, they've been one of the best defenses. And so, but the Piper, you got to pay the Piper. So they're about to lose some guys. That's going to cause a philosophy shift. And Mahomes is still that guy.
All right.
Don't forget Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Problem in the Super Bowl is they couldn't protect him. And so
Exactly.
it wasn't the Eagles. They just couldn't protect it. They had no answer for the Eagles' defensive line. And if Buffalo had anybody on their defensive line, I think you would have seen a similar instance in that game. It's just Buffalo couldn't generate pressure, and then Kyer Elam had to come in because Christian Benford got knocked out. And for a quarter, Elam is out there looking like a deer on roller skates, getting just diced up for an entire quarter, and that really lost the game for the Bills.
Yeah, it's real bad. It was very bad. I also hate the Bills, so I was glad to see that happen.
Hey, so look, one thing you can do.
You hate the Bills. Who hates the Bills? Come on.
Right, yeah. Go on Spotify, Chev, and everybody here.
You hate the Bills.
And Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? Just play it a couple times and just think Patrick Mahomes. Bigz.
Bro, we're old enough. You're old. You watched this happen with Tom Brady, Jeremiah. You watched it happen.
I was just going to say, before the last shovel full of dirt falls on Mahomes' corpse, let's transition from a terrible downfield thrower to a really good downfield thrower. You got a chance to watch Chip Kelly's offense in action last year at Ohio State. He is now the offensive coordinator in Las Vegas. They went out and they made a trade. They grabbed Geno Smith, brought him over. They got a carbon copy almost of Jacoby Myers in a heavily blocking power slot in Jack Bech. They went out and they got the Al Davis, the ultimate Al Davis weapon in Dante Thornton. You already have Brock Bowers in-house. What do you see from Geno Smith? He's, over the last few years, he's got a ceiling of QB 5 in Dynasty and a floor of QB 13 when he's fully healthy. Do you think he slots in there, or do you maybe see some regression from him?
Probably lean more on Pete Carroll being a little bit more of a conservative coach than Chip Kelly, really opening and going wide open, I think is what you're going to see. I'm leaning on, obviously, taking Ashton Genty 6th overall, leaning on Genty, leaning on Brock Bowers. I mean, we need to see something out of anybody beyond Jacoby Myers before we're really thinking that there's targets there outside of Bowers and Myers. So, I mean, that's the question there. Trey Tucker, a guy you haven't mentioned, I think he's the guy that really needs to maybe step up if you're going to have that downfield passing attack very, very quickly. But I think that Pete Carroll, I think Pete Carroll kind of wants to be, my guess is just given his history, wants to lean on that run, be a little bit more conservative, be a little bit more of let's take care of the football type of approach.
Okay.
I can see Genty getting like 350,
1 billion,
like 400 carries this year, and just being leaned on, and just be like he could be the RB1 overall, and I wouldn't question that whatsoever, just based off of the usage. Look at what Marshawn Lynch did as a Seahawk back in the day, and I just see a similar path for Ashton Genty. And I'm not. I think Geno Smith can be a very serviceable QB2, round QB 18, if you will. Probably not as,
see what you did there.
Probably ahead of Mahomes at this stage, right, Jeremiah? But I mean,
not quite there, but I see what you did.
But other than that, but I see a very run heavy offense there from my outside perspective as a non-Raider fan.
And if it is not a run heavy offense, if it surpasses 15th in team pass rate, he will fire them for philosophical differences, because we've seen it happen with 3 of his offensive coordinators in Seattle.
That's awesome. All right, bigz, do it like you always do. So good, man.
I'm kind of proud because I just got my first share of Corey Bjorkes.
Are you playing North Korean basketball or something?
No, it's Fantasy Cares Eliminator. Corey, we're counting punter points. Yeah, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on to the show with us. It was awesome to have you here. Can't wait to have you again sometime really soon, and see you down in Canton. Well, up in Canton for some people. See you in Canton for the expo. Thank all of you guys for watching and for listening and all of that stuff. We hope you win.
Jeff, you want to tell everybody where they can find you and all your stuff?
Oh, just step on my clothes. Thanks.
You can find me at Football Guys, but why don't you guys tell people what you got with this rookie guy that you guys mentioned before the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are about to launch our first rookie guide for the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. It's gone to the publisher, so we're waiting any day now for the ads to come out. And the 5 of us in this room, outside of you, Jeff, obviously, have worked really, really hard on getting this rookie guide out. We prospected 50 offensive players, over 24 defensive players, from advanced analytics, scouting reports to fantasy outlooks. You're going to be able to find out where to draft them in Dynasty, where to draft them in redraft. And it's been a collaborative effort. We worked really hard on getting it out, and we're really excited to see the final product finally hit the shelves. It's been really good. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody from tuning in.